Morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm going to be saying a few words about organisation and the workforce, but much more about the workforce than organisation, which my esteemed Commissioner Neil is going to talk much more about later. Before I start, I'd just like to thank you all as APSE members and Paul for inviting me to be a member of the Commission, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. Local government never ceases to amaze me, fascinate me, engage me, and although I'm no longer at Unison, is still very dear to my heart. So thank you all, and thank you to my fellow commissioners who I've really enjoyed working with, every single one of them in different ways, and I think we have brought different things to the table. I would just like to say, don't believe a word that Gary Porter says, because he's not daft. He's probably got the most incisive mind of anyone on the Commission, because when we were all sort of wading away in abstract concepts and things surrounding local government, Gary would come in with a one-liner that cut through the whole thing and made us all go, yeah, that's right. So don't believe it. Anyway, enough of that, and also I would just like to thank the Secretariat too. Steve and the team, been brilliant. So just a little bit on organisation from me, and what we heard from the very wide range of people who came and gave evidence, which was fascinating to hear. So it won't surprise you at all to hear that in England there is enormous confusion about local government structures and how they fit together, how they do or don't deliver for local people. Parishes, do we have them, don't we have them, should we have them everywhere, should we have unitaries everywhere? You know the discussion. But what is very clear is that there is a view that what we have at the moment doesn't really work, and it certainly doesn't work in terms of local government having, to use a bit of a hackneyed phrase, stewardship of place, of being able to lead other public bodies as well as local government itself within the local government area and so on. But equally, there's no real agreement on the size that local authorities should be and what's appropriate for all areas. And that's good, I guess, and that's quite in line with the title of the report, local by default. But of course, there are very big questions too about fragmentation and the role of local authorities in terms of the level and nature of outsourced services that we currently have. And I think it's fairly clear to me that once services are outsourced, they're often lost in a way to the local authority, which is not acceptable. And so that leads on to the general view that was put to us that direct provision should be the default option for local services where it's the best option and delivers quality. I'll say a bit more about that later. But in terms of the workforce, I think this is a vital and much needed opportunity for us to have a rethink, and some of at least one of the proposals that we make in the report, I think, is a radical one that needs to be taken on board. But of course, in the same way as local government has been treated as the poor relation by central government, so has the local government workforce over a long period of time. So the impact of austerity on the local government workforce has been extreme. So local government across the UK has lost almost 1 million jobs since 2010. But if you look at government data, you will see that the NHS workforce and the civil service, the central government workforces, in terms of number of posts, have continued to increase Even though there may be vacant posts, the actual number of posts has increased significantly. So we have a predominantly female, 3/4 women in local government having to do the same and more post-COVID under very, very difficult conditions. And it's not just the number of jobs that's different. If you're a cleaner in local government, you generally earn less than a cleaner who works in a police service or a cleaner in the NHS. If you're a social worker in local government, you earn less than a social worker in the NHS, and so on. There's a clear pattern, and conditions of work in local government, and a lot of, well, all of you probably know this yourself, because of cuts, have been whittled away in the last 10, 12 years, with annual leave being cut, maternity rights being cut in some places, car allowances being cut, very widespread reductions in what at one time in the 70s and 80s was an exemplary NJC local government collective agreement. And of course, where jobs are outsourced, and we know this for sure in care, but also other areas of outsourcing, pay and conditions are generally worse, and frequently there are no pensions. And I think we have to continue to see that outsourced workforce as part of the local government family and recognise that they are being treated differentially. So there is very clear evidence that job cuts have impacted most on women, and that's not just because women are 3/4 of the workforce. The cuts in local government services have had what the Women's Budget Group, and I recommend their work to you if you don't know it, have called a triple whammy. Because not only are women the majority of workers, they are most dependent on local government services for themselves and their families. And when those services are cut, as we know is the case with domestic violence refuges or street lighting and street safety and so on, then it's women who have to foot the bill, who pick up that stuff and have to do it in their own domestic lives. So local government is so important for women and those they care for, children and elderly people. But let's come on to the diversity point, and Elma has already very eloquently outlined the importance of local government getting the diversity message. At the moment, there is a real lack of diversity at the top of local government. It remains unrepresentative of women and black and minority ethnic communities and also disabled people. So certainly in 2018, when there were a couple of studies done, women were only 30% of the top 20 roles across local government. That's not good enough. They're the majority of the workforce, but actually unrepresented at the top. And personally, wearing my old Unison hat, I feel that the absence of women at the top of local government is one of the reasons why, over time, pay and conditions deteriorated. Similarly, within the councillor body. When it comes to black and minority ethnic people, the situation is even worse. In 2018, only 13 chief executives, for instance, in over 400 councils were from black or minority ethnic background. Now, that's bad in itself from an employment practice point of view, but that really, really matters in terms of service delivery. Because a predominantly white leadership in local government cannot deliver adequately the kind of services that diverse communities need. And I think that's one of the big messages from this commission. So communities are best served when the workforce reflects the diversity. And the other evidence that was repeatedly coming forward to us was the need for new and developed career pathways into and within local government. Now, there is a very shocking statistic, I think, which is the latest one from the LGA, about the resources available for training for existing staff within local government. So the budget is £143 per employee per year. 90% of that goes on chief officers and senior managers. And so you work out for yourself how much is available for training the rest of the local government workforce. And wearing my old Unison hat, one of the things that struck me consistently was the huge and proper amount of resources put into the NHS workforce, both in terms of advisors and policy people at NHS headquarters, but also access to training and development. And there is a massive divide. But we also need to develop new career pathways, particularly around areas that are of such critical importance, the environment being one of them, digitalisation, and social care, obviously. So, I'm now moving on to our recommendations, and I think recommendation 20 is one of the two recommendations that I think are very critical in our report. So what we're recommending, based on the assumption that diverse communities need diverse workforces, is that there should be a duty placed on councils for the local government workforce to be representative of communities it serves, with an annual reporting mechanism on progress. So I think no more of the laissez-faire attitude to this issue. We really need to grasp it. Paul talked earlier about social movements. Black Lives Matter isn't just about policing. Black Lives Matter is about the needs of black and minority ethnic communities being addressed, and similarly for women, for people with disabilities, for our LGBTQI communities, and so on. So we're proposing a duty. And the next recommendation, I think, I know some of my trade union colleagues will raise their eyebrows at, but is very important. In order to address the disparity between local government pay and conditions, access to training and so on, with the rest of the public sector, we are suggesting that there should be a national linked system of core pay and conditions within the public sector and public services, so that if you are a cleaner in local government, you earn the same as a cleaner in the NHS, and so on. And that this should be in line with the principle of equal pay for work of equal value. So that's quite a radical proposal, and some unions will say, well, what will we do then? We won't be negotiating our own pay. But it's time for the disparity to end. So as I said earlier, we're calling also for the establishment of new career paths and career development. And this has to be taken extremely seriously. If you're a frontline worker at the moment, you're lucky if you get customer care training. That has to end. There have to be development opportunities for frontline workers, but we do have to take on board the areas of skill that need vitally to be developed around the environment and so on. And finally, our last recommendation, which others have talked about and they will probably talk about, is that local by default for the Commission also means that service delivery should be democratically accountable It should be tailored to the diverse needs of communities, but we believe that services should be directly delivered by local authorities as the default option. That doesn't mean, obviously, it means enhancing quality, it means being able to tailor services better, to be more flexible, and to do the best that local government can do.